In the dusty plains near Sardis, the largest army the ancient world had ever seen clashed with a rising eastern power. Croesus of Lydia brought a vast force of seasoned cavalry, hardened mercenaries, and elite troops against a Persian army led by Cyrus the Great, a man whose reputation was still in the making. But what unfolded was not just a contest of numbers, but of genius. And it was here, at Thymbra, that Cyrus would rise from a rebellious vassal to the master of Anatolia. By the mid-6th century BC, the balance of power in the Near East had shifted. The once great Assyrian Empire was gone, replaced by new regional kingdoms. Among them, Lydia stood tall in western Anatolia. Its king, Croesus, was famous not only for his immeasurable wealth — his name would become synonymous with riches — but also for his powerful army, his alliances, and his ambition. His capital, Sardis, was a beacon of culture and commerce, and he counted Sparta, Egypt, and Babylon as allies. To the east, a new threat had emerged. Cyrus of Persia had risen in rebellion against the Medes in 553 BC. In just a few years, he defeated his former overlords and united the Median and Persian tribes into a formidable new empire. But victory over the Medes was just the beginning. Cyrus now looked westward, while Croesus looked eastward, both men anticipating the inevitable clash. Croesus believed the time to strike was now. Babylon and Egypt had pledged to support him, and Cyrus had only just finished his war with the Medes. Croesus marched east and crossed the Halys River, the traditional border between Lydia and Media. In a brief campaign, he captured the city of Pteria, but the battle that followed, fought in late 547 BC, was indecisive. As winter approached, Croesus withdrew to Sardis to wait for reinforcements from his allies. But Cyrus was not about to let him regroup. In a stunning winter campaign, he pursued the Lydian army into their homeland, marching hundreds of kilometers in a matter of weeks. Croesus, caught off guard, was forced to hastily gather his forces again and meet the Persian army outside his capital. The stage was set at Thymbra, a flat plain just east of Sardis. The Lydians held home advantage. The Persians, however, had momentum. Despite being outnumbered, Cyrus had a plan, and unlike at Pteria, this time he would not fight a conventional battle. Instead, he prepared an unorthodox formation designed to neutralize Croesus's greatest strength, his powerful cavalry. Croesus had summoned a massive force, possibly 100,000 strong by ancient estimates, though modern historians believe a more conservative 50,000 to 70,000 is likely. His corps consisted of native Lydian infantry and a renowned cavalry corps. Lydia was famous for its horsemen. Croesus had also hired Greek mercenaries, hardy hoplites from Ionia, and brought in Phrygian and Cappadocian allies, plus war chariots and archers from across Anatolia. In contrast, Cyrus's army may have been slightly smaller, estimated between 40,000 to 50,000, but it was far more diverse. It included Persian and Median infantry, seasoned archers, and a unique element not often seen in battle: camels. These came from Cyrus's supply train and were adapted for war specifically for this encounter. He also deployed light cavalry and a solid corps of Median and Persian spearmen. Despite his numerical disadvantage, Cyrus had the advantage of flexibility and leadership. For the battle, Cyrus arranged his troops in a novel formation. At the center stood his elite Persian infantry, spearmen and archers. Behind them were his reserves, likely more infantry with bows. To their sides, he extended wings of troops but placed mobile units slightly behind the center, creating a hollow rectangle-like shape. Crucially, Cyrus placed camels at the front, ahead of the infantry line. These animals were known to terrify horses due to their scent and appearance, and Cyrus planned to use them to disrupt the Lydian cavalry, the most dangerous arm of Croesus's army. Behind the camels came archers and slingers who would harass the enemy from range. Cyrus kept a strong cavalry force in reserve, ready to exploit any gaps. Croesus lined up his army in a far more conventional setup. His heavily armored cavalry was positioned on both wings, prepared to outflank the Persian army. The center consisted of his Lydian infantry, reinforced by hoplites and subject levies. His chariots, probably fewer in number but symbolic, were placed up front. The battlefield was open, flat, and perfect for cavalry maneuvers. In theory, Croesus had the advantage. As the battle began, Croesus launched a powerful cavalry charge on both wings. These were elite forces, noble Lydian horsemen trained for shock combat. They advanced swiftly, intending to crash into the Persian infantry flanks and break the formation from the sides. But before they could reach their targets, they encountered something unexpected: the camel screen. The moment the horses approached, they panicked. Ancient sources describe the chaos as horses refused to charge, rearing and turning back at the scent of the camels. The Lydian cavalry formation fell apart, with riders losing control of their mounts. This disruption broke the momentum of Croesus's initial attack. And at that critical moment, Cyrus gave the signal. Archers from behind the camels loosed volleys into the disorganized cavalry ranks. The result was devastating. With their horses unresponsive and under a rain of arrows, many Lydian riders were forced to retreat or were cut down where they stood. The great cavalry wings that Croesus had hoped would envelop the Persian army had been neutralized within minutes. With the Lydian cavalry in disarray, Cyrus now launched his own cavalry, which had been held back behind his infantry flanks. These units surged forward, not only to pursue the fleeing horsemen, but to strike at the flanks of Croesus's central infantry. At the same time, the camel screen moved aside, and the Persian center began a steady advance. Archers continued to harass the enemy as the infantry approached. Croesus's infantry, though brave, was now exposed and unsupported by its flanks. The Persian advance was careful and coordinated. Rather than rushing forward, Cyrus allowed his archers and slingers to maintain pressure while the infantry closed the distance. The idea was to soften up the Lydian center and draw them into premature engagement. Croesus, recognizing the danger of being surrounded, ordered his center to advance rapidly to meet the Persians and regain initiative. As Croesus's infantry pushed forward, they were met by a hail of arrows from the Persian line. Cyrus's archers maintained discipline, loosing volleys until the Lydians were nearly upon them. Then, the front rank of Persian spearmen stepped forward to receive the charge. The initial collision was intense. The Lydians, backed by heavily armed hoplites from the Greek cities of Ionia, fought with shield and spear in tight formation. These were disciplined warriors accustomed to holding their ground, but Cyrus had prepared his core infantry well. The Persian and Median soldiers in his center had fought together in previous campaigns and were trained to fight as a cohesive force. Supported by missile troops behind them, they absorbed the Lydian assault. For a time, the center held in a brutal stalemate. Bronze clanged against iron, spears splintered, men pushed forward in dense ranks, each side looking for a break in the line. Croesus hoped that his superior numbers would eventually tip the balance. That weight alone could grind down the Persian core. But Cyrus was playing a longer game. While the centers were locked in combat, Cyrus executed the most decisive maneuver of the day. The Persian cavalry, having pursued and routed the disoriented Lydian horsemen earlier, now wheeled inward to strike the exposed flanks and rear of the Lydian infantry. The Lydian formation, which had pressed forward hoping to overwhelm the Persian line, now found itself dangerously overextended. There was little in the way of protection on the sides, no cavalry support, no reserves to anchor the formation. The Persian cavalry swept in with deadly precision, cutting into the vulnerable rear ranks and sowing panic. At the same time, the camel units, now free of their screening role, were redirected to harass the retreating remnants of the Lydian cavalry, preventing any regrouping or counterattack. The Lydian infantry, now surrounded on three sides, began to collapse under pressure. The cohesion of the hoplite line broke down first. These troops, trained to fight shoulder to shoulder, could not withstand attacks from the rear. As Persian cavalry pressed deeper, panic spread through the ranks. Discipline gave way to chaos. Once the infantry line began to break, the rout was swift. Many Lydians tried to retreat toward Sardis, only a few kilometers behind them, but Persian cavalry harried their escape. The flat plain that had once favored Croesus now worked against him, offering little terrain to regroup or defend. Cyrus, seizing the moment, ordered a full advance. His infantry surged forward, pushing the disintegrating Lydian lines toward the edges of the field. The remaining archers loosed arrows into the backs of fleeing soldiers. Any hope Croesus had of stabilizing the battle vanished. Within hours, the Lydian army was shattered. Thousands were slain or captured, and what had begun as a confident stand near home territory turned into a devastating defeat. The king of Lydia, who had once been the wealthiest ruler in the known world, had lost nearly his entire army in a single day. Croesus retreated into Sardis with a small remnant of survivors. Though the city had strong walls, Cyrus wasted no time. He laid siege to the Lydian capital immediately. According to Herodotus, Sardis fell within 2 weeks, either through a surprise assault or betrayal from within. Croesus was captured alive. While later legend says Cyrus spared him and kept him as an advisor, what's clear is that the defeat at Thymbra ended Lydia's independence. Cyrus annexed the kingdom and its vast resources, taking control of the rich Ionian coast and opening the door for future Persian expansion into Anatolia and eventually Greece. The victory at Thymbra marked a defining moment in Cyrus's rise. It was not just a triumph of arms, but of strategy. His use of camels to neutralize enemy cavalry and the disciplined execution of a coordinated battle plan demonstrated a level of military thinking far ahead of its time. The Battle of Thymbra wasn't the largest battle of the ancient world, but it was one of the most decisive. With cunning strategy, careful formation planning, and relentless execution, Cyrus the Great turned a risky winter campaign into a total conquest. In a single season, he defeated one of the richest and most powerful kings of his era and absorbed his kingdom into the growing Persian Empire. From this victory, Cyrus would go on to found one of the largest empires in history, remembered not only for his conquests, but for his policies of tolerance and statecraft. And it all began on a cold plain outside Sardis, where strategy defeated wealth, and a new era in the ancient world was born.